I stood there frozen, staring at the trash can. My heart felt like it dropped straight to the floor. The gift I had spent weeks preparing for Mom's birthday, the one I wrapped so carefully with gold ribbon, was lying there unopened. My sister Vanessa stood a few feet away, arms crossed, a smug smile on her face. "Guess Mom didn't need your cheap stuff," she said, her voice full of mockery. I tried to laugh it off, pretending her words didn't hurt, but deep inside something cracked. I had worked so hard on that gift, not because it was expensive, but because it meant something. I had poured my love into it, and seeing it treated like trash made me feel invisible. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. That night, I drove home quietly. The laughter from the party still echoed in my ears, mixing with the sound of the rain hitting my windshield. I didn't cry right away. I just kept replaying the moment in my head. Vanessa's smirk, the gift in the trash, Mom saying nothing. It was like every part of me had been stepped on, and I couldn't even fight back. At home, I placed my purse on the couch and sat in silence. I thought about every family gathering where I'd been made to feel small. Every time Vanessa made a cruel joke and everyone laughed. Every time Mom looked proud of her and barely noticed me. For years, I told myself it didn't matter. But that night, it finally did. I realized something important. People treat you how you let them. And I had let them treat me like I didn't matter. I had stayed quiet to keep peace. I had smiled while breaking inside. But not anymore. That night, I promised myself one thing. I would never let them humiliate me again. It wasn't anger that filled me. It was a kind of calm determination. I didn't want revenge. I wanted respect. I wanted to stand on my own feet and not be measured against my sister anymore. So I made a silent vow. I'd focus on myself. I'd work harder, save more, and build a life where their opinions couldn't touch me. I didn't need to prove my worth to them. I needed to prove it to myself. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, strength. Maybe it was buried under years of being ignored, but it was there waiting. That night was the first time I truly saw who I was. Not the unwanted daughter, not the poor sister. Just me, someone ready to rise quietly, without asking for anyone's permission. I'm Natalie Evans, the one everyone in my family sees as the less successful daughter. I grew up hearing comparisons that never stopped. My sister Vanessa was always the shining star, the one who made Mom proud. She became a lawyer, married a rich husband, and moved into a big house in the suburbs. Every time I visited, Mom's eyes would light up with pride just talking about her. And then there was me, the nurse who worked night shifts, paid rent for a small apartment, and barely had time for vacations. I loved my job because helping people gave me purpose, but in my family's eyes, it wasn't enough. Whenever we sat around the dinner table, conversations always circled back to Vanessa's achievements, her cases, her vacations, her husband's business. If I mentioned something about work, it was brushed aside like small talk. At first, I told myself it didn't bother me. I convinced myself that success wasn't just about money or status. But deep down, the constant comparison ate away at me. I could see it in Mom's proud smile when Vanessa spoke, and in the way her tone changed when she turned to me. Softer, polite, but distant, like she didn't quite know what to say. Vanessa knew exactly how to play her role. She was charming, confident, and always made sure people noticed her. She'd talk about her new car or how her husband surprised her with jewelry, and Mom would hang on to every word. Then she'd glance at me with that same condescending smile, the one that said, "You'll never catch up." Family gatherings became something I dreaded. They weren't about love or connection anymore. They were competitions I never wanted to enter. Every comment felt like a reminder that I wasn't enough. I could feel myself shrinking every time Vanessa laughed about my busy little job, or when Mom said, "You'll find your moment, honey," like I was still a child waiting for approval. But the truth was, I had stopped trying to impress them a long time ago. I had built a quiet life for myself. I paid my bills, I was independent, and I found joy in small things like morning coffee after a long shift or reading by the window on my days off. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. Still, no matter how much I tried to stay strong, being around them made me feel like that small girl again, the one standing in the shadow of her perfect sister. I learned to smile through it, to stay quiet, to let their words pass over me like wind. But deep down, it left marks that never truly faded. I didn't realize it then, but that quiet resentment, the years of being overlooked, was building something inside me. Something that would eventually change everything. Because when people keep underestimating you, they forget that silence can grow into strength. And soon mine would. And that promise became the start of everything that changed. Mom's 60th birthday was supposed to be a beautiful night. Vanessa had taken charge of everything, like always. She booked a fancy restaurant downtown, sent out invites to all of Mom's friends, and made sure everyone knew how much she had spent to make it perfect. I could already tell this night would be another show of how amazing Vanessa was. Still, I told myself I wasn't going to let it bother me. I just wanted Mom to have a good day. I couldn't afford an expensive gift like the others, so I decided to give her something from the heart. For weeks, I worked on a photo album, filled with old pictures of us as kids, small notes I wrote beside each photo, and even pressed flowers from our old backyard garden. Every page held a piece of our memories. It wasn't much in money, but it was full of love. I thought maybe it would remind Mom of the times when things were simpler, before everything became about who was more successful. The night of the party, the restaurant was full of laughter, music, and flashing cameras. Vanessa was glowing in her designer dress, moving around like the perfect host. Mom looked happy, surrounded by friends, champagne in her hand. When it was time for gifts, everyone handed her boxes wrapped in shiny paper, jewelry, perfumes, even a weekend getaway ticket from Vanessa. Everyone clapped and smiled. Then it was my turn. I walked up quietly and handed Mom my gift. "This is for you, Mom," I said softly. She smiled, but it was a polite one, not the kind that reached her eyes. She placed it beside her chair and went on to open the next gift. No one paid much attention to mine. I sat back at the table, pretending I didn't notice, pretending it didn't sting. As the night went on, I helped clear a few things and said my goodbyes early. Before leaving, I went to grab my coat from the corner near the kitchen. That's when I saw it, the photo album. My photo album. It was lying in the trash bin near the catering table, still wrapped, just the ribbon untied. For a moment, I couldn't move. I just stared at it, my chest tightening. The same hands that had glued every picture, the same heart that had written those little notes, now felt completely worthless. I didn't need to ask who had done it. The neat, careful way it was tossed said enough. Vanessa. I wanted to take it out, but I didn't. Instead, I stood there quietly, swallowed the pain, and walked out. The cold air outside hit my face, but it didn't cool the burn inside me. I didn't cry. I just kept walking to my car, realizing something had broken for good that night. That small act, throwing away my gift, wasn't just about a photo album. It was about every time they'd made me feel like I didn't belong. And for the first time, I knew when I saw the photo album in the trash, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone dropped it by accident. But then I heard that familiar voice behind me, calm, sharp, and full of amusement. Vanessa stood there, holding a glass of wine, watching me stare at the bin. Her lips curved into that same smirk she always wore when she thought she'd won. "Oh, Nat," she said, pretending to sound gentle. "Don't take it personally. Mom just likes real gifts, not scrapbooks." The way she said it, slow, almost kind, made it worse. She wanted me to feel small. Her words cut deeper than she knew, and when I looked around, I realized others were watching too. A few people chuckled quietly. One even covered their mouth, trying not to show it. My face burned, my throat tightened, but I forced myself to smile. "It's fine," I whispered, even though it wasn't. Vanessa tilted her head and gave me that look, the one that said you'll never be me. Then she walked away, laughing with her friends. The room suddenly felt too bright, too full of noise. My chest ached, and it was hard to breathe. I slipped out quietly, hoping no one would notice. The sound of laughter followed me all the way to the parking lot. My hands were shaking when I reached my car. I sat there in the dark, gripping the steering wheel, trying not to cry. But the tears came anyway, slow at first, then all at once. I felt foolish, humiliated, and completely alone. I had always known Vanessa could be cruel, but that night felt different. It wasn't just a mean comment or a little competition. It was the moment she made sure everyone saw how unimportant I was. And worse, no one defended me, not even Mom. That silence hurt more than anything. I drove home without saying goodbye. The roads were empty, the rain had started to fall again, and I could barely see through the windshield. My thoughts were loud. Every word Vanessa said kept repeating in my mind, mixing with all the times she'd made me feel like I wasn't enough. When I finally got home, I didn't turn on the lights. I sat on the couch, soaked and exhausted, staring at nothing. My chest still hurt, but underneath that pain, something else began to rise, something steady and cold. It wasn't anger, not the loud kind. It was quiet, heavy, and sure. That night, I realized I was done trying to fit into their world. I was done being polite while they laughed at me. I was done waiting for someone to see my worth. Something inside me hardened, not in a bitter way, but in a way that said never again. I didn't know how, but I promised myself I would change things. I wouldn't fight them with words or revenge. I would build a life so strong and peaceful that their opinions would mean nothing. That night, the old version of me, the quiet, forgiving Natalie, was gone. In her place, someone new began to rise, someone who finally understood that being forgotten was the best reason to start remembering your own worth. Wasn't going to let that feeling control me anymore. After that night, I stopped trying to be seen. I didn't argue with anyone, and I didn't try to explain how much they had hurt me. I simply pulled back and focused on my own life. There was no point in wasting my energy on people who only noticed me when they wanted to laugh. I learned that silence could be stronger than any words. So, I started showing up for myself. I picked up extra shifts at the hospital, even the tough overnight ones that no one wanted. I spent less time thinking about family gatherings and more time improving my work. Slowly, my dedication paid off. My supervisor noticed how reliable I was and started giving me more responsibilities. Within months, I was promoted to head nurse. For the first time, I felt proud, not because someone else said I should be, but because I knew I had earned it. I began saving every extra dollar. I didn't buy expensive clothes or go out much. I had a quiet goal in my heart, to build a life completely on my own terms. Each morning before work, I would make a cup of coffee and tell myself, "You're getting stronger," even if they don't see it. Meanwhile, life around Vanessa wasn't as perfect as it once looked. I heard small things at first, whispers from relatives or mutual friends. Her husband's law firm was being investigated for some kind of financial issue. Then there were rumors about debts, unpaid bills, and tension at home. Vanessa still acted like everything was fine, showing up to family dinners with the same smile, but there was a nervous edge to it now. Whenever she bragged about something, I just listened and nodded politely. I didn't correct her, didn't question her, didn't let her words get to me. I had learned that silence unsettled people like her more than arguments ever could. She noticed it too, the way I didn't react anymore. Sometimes she'd glance at me, expecting me to shrink or blush, but I just smiled faintly and went back to my food. Inside, I wasn't celebrating her troubles. I didn't want revenge in the cruel sense. But a small part of me couldn't ignore the irony. For years, she made me feel like less because of her shiny, perfect life. Now that shine was fading, and she didn't know how to live without it. My peace came from knowing I didn't need to prove anything. While her world was falling apart, I was quietly building mine. I had stability, respect, and a calm she could never buy. One evening after a long shift, I looked around my small apartment, neat, peaceful, full of warmth, and realized how far I'd come. No one had to see it or praise it. The victory was mine alone. I didn't need. A few months later, Mom's health started to decline. It began with small things, fatigue, loss of appetite, and then more serious symptoms. The doctor said she needed rest and care, but Vanessa didn't know how to handle it. She was too busy with her own problems, running between lawyers, bills, and her collapsing marriage. So, without being asked, I offered to take Mom in for a while. She hesitated at first, maybe out of pride, but finally agreed. When she moved into my apartment, it felt strange at the beginning. We hadn't spent real time together in years. I expected awkward silences or distant conversations, but it wasn't like that. Slowly, something changed. Our evenings became peaceful. Dinners at the small kitchen table, light conversations about simple things, and sometimes just silence that didn't feel uncomfortable. I cooked her soup, helped her take her medicine, and made sure she had everything she needed. At first, she seemed unsure of how to react to my care. Maybe guilt lived somewhere in her heart too. But as days turned into weeks, she started opening up. She would tell me old stories about her childhood, about my dad, and even laugh sometimes. It felt like the bond we had lost long ago was finding its way back. One quiet evening, we were sitting in the living room after dinner. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. Mom looked at me with a tired smile and said, "Natalie, I need to tell you something." I turned toward her, unsure of what she was about to say. Her voice softened. "I found that photo album again," she whispered. "The one you made for my birthday." My heart stopped for a second. I didn't know how to respond. I thought she never cared about it, that she had thrown it away without a thought. But then she continued. Vanessa threw it out before I even saw it. She told me you didn't bring a gift that night. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. All the pain I'd carried from that night came rushing back, but now it had a new shape, betrayal. Not from Mom, but from Vanessa. The anger, the humiliation, the years of feeling unwanted. All of it had been built on a lie. Mom reached for my hand. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I should have known better, she said quietly. Her eyes were watery, filled with regret. I didn't know what to say, so I just squeezed her hand back. Words didn't matter. That night, when Mom went to bed, I sat alone in the living room. My chest was heavy, but not with pain, with clarity. For the first time, I understood everything. Vanessa hadn't just tried to make me look small. She had stolen years of closeness between me and Mom. But now, I had what she could never take, Mom's trust, peace, and a bond that had rebuilt itself in the quiet moments we shared. It was the first real turning point of my life, and I knew from then on, things would never go back to the way they were. To shout. My silence spoke louder than anything Vanessa ever said. When Mom started to get better, she asked me to stay with her full time. I didn't even hesitate. I moved some of my things into her house and began taking care of her every day. I cooked her meals, helped her with her medicine, and took her to her doctor appointments. She said she felt calmer with me around. For me, it wasn't just about duty anymore. It was about finally being close to her again. Vanessa didn't like it at all. She visited once in a while, but every time she came, I could feel the tension in the air. She'd make little comments about how I was playing nurse or trying too hard to look like the good daughter. Mom didn't respond to those remarks anymore. She would just glance at Vanessa and then change the subject. That quiet shift in her attitude made Vanessa even angrier. One afternoon, things finally exploded. Vanessa came by with a few groceries and that usual forced smile. I was helping Mom in the kitchen when Vanessa started complaining about how busy she was, how stressful her life had become, and how some people had too much free time. I ignored it, but Mom didn't. She turned to her and said calmly, Vanessa, why would you throw your sister's birthday gift away? The words hung in the air. The room went completely silent. I froze, not sure if I should leave or stay. Vanessa's face changed instantly. She went pale, then defensive. What are you talking about? She said. But Mom didn't back down. You told me Natalie didn't bring a gift. I know the truth now. You threw it out before I even saw it. For the first time, Vanessa didn't have her usual charm. Her voice rose. Because she always tries to make herself look better. She's pathetic, Mom. She acts like she's so kind and humble, but she just wants attention. Her words hit hard, but not because they were true, because they showed who she really was. Mom didn't say a word. She just looked at her, eyes cold and disappointed. The silence that followed felt heavier than shouting. Vanessa's face turned red. She tried to speak again, but Mom quietly said, You've disappointed me. That was it. No yelling, no arguing, just those few words. And they hurt more than anything. Vanessa grabbed her bag and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. After she left, Mom sat down slowly. I could see tears forming in her eyes. I raised you both, she said softly, but I never saw how much she hurt you. I should have. I didn't know what to say. I just knelt beside her and hugged her. That moment changed everything. The truth had finally come out, and it didn't need any more explanation. Mom saw Vanessa for who she truly was. And for the first time in my life, she saw me too, not as the forgotten. After that day, everything started to change quietly. Mom didn't talk much about the argument, but her actions said everything. She began to trust me completely. She asked me to take care of her finances, manage her appointments, and handle all the small things around the house. She even gave me access to her bank account so I could pay her bills and buy what she needed. It felt strange at first, being the one she depended on. For so long, I had been the daughter no one noticed, the one who stood at the edge of every family event. But now, Mom would call me first if something broke in the house or if she felt unwell. She'd ask for my advice and listen carefully to what I said. That quiet respect meant more than any apology ever could. Vanessa noticed the shift immediately. She started visiting more often, trying to act like nothing had happened. She'd bring flowers or talk about how worried she was for Mom, but it didn't fool anyone. Mom was polite to her, but the warmth she once had for Vanessa wasn't there anymore. You could feel it in her tone, gentle but distant. Whenever Vanessa tried to take control again, like suggesting new doctors or making decisions about the house, Mom would turn to me and ask, "What do you think, Natalie?" I could see the flash of jealousy in Vanessa's eyes every time it happened. She wasn't used to being the one left out, and she hated it. Word spread through the family about how I was taking care of Mom. Aunts, cousins, and even old family friends started telling me how proud they were of me. They'd say things like, "You've always had such a good heart," or "It's amazing how devoted you are to your mother." I didn't do it for praise, but hearing those words healed something inside me. For years, I had been made to feel like the weak one, the one who couldn't measure up. Now, people were finally seeing the truth, not because I tried to prove it, but because my actions spoke for themselves. Vanessa couldn't stand it. At family gatherings, she'd sit there with that tight smile, pretending everything was fine while others complimented me. Sometimes she'd interrupt with stories about her job or travels, trying to shift attention back to herself, but it never worked anymore. People would listen politely, then turn back to me or Mom. I didn't gloat or try to make her feel small. I just stayed calm, spoke kindly, and focused on Mom. That quiet confidence unsettled her more than anything. She wasn't used to me being strong. For the first time, I wasn't the shadow in the room. I wasn't the one waiting to be noticed. I had earned respect, not through money or titles, but through care, patience, and honesty. And seeing Vanessa sit there, struggling to hide her bitterness, I realized something. I didn't need to hurt her to win. Just being at peace was enough. That shift changed the entire balance of our family, and this time, there was no going back. Daughter, but as someone who had always loved her, even when it hurt. When Mom passed away, the house felt too quiet. I had been with her in her final days, holding her hand, making sure she wasn't alone. She went peacefully, and though it broke my heart, I was grateful I got to be there. After the funeral, the family gathered at the lawyer's office to hear the reading of her will. I didn't expect anything. I had never cared about the money or property. I just wanted closure. But what happened next changed everything. The lawyer began reading, his voice steady. Most of Mom's savings were divided between charities and small gifts to relatives. Then came the part everyone was waiting for, the house. The same house Vanessa had always called her future home. She used to talk about it openly, saying how she'd renovate it once Mom was gone, how it was basically already hers. But when the lawyer said, "The house is to be passed down to my daughter, Natalie Evans," the room fell silent. I could feel Vanessa's eyes burning into me. She sat frozen for a moment, as if she hadn't heard right. Then she snapped. "What?" she shouted. "That's not possible." She manipulated Mom. She took advantage of her when she was sick. Her voice shook the room. Everyone turned to look at her, but I didn't move. I just sat quietly, my hands folded in my lap. The lawyer calmly handed her a copy of the will, confirming what he'd said. Vanessa's face turned red. She slammed her hand on the table. "You think you deserve that house," she spat. "You've always been jealous of me. You turned Mom against me." I took a deep breath, stood up slowly, and looked her in the eye. "No, Vanessa," I said softly. "I didn't turn her against you. I was there when she needed someone, something you never were." She opened her mouth to argue, but said nothing. For once, she didn't have a comeback. The silence that followed was thick, heavy, and satisfying. She looked around the room, searching for support, but no one spoke up. Everyone knew the truth. It wasn't about money or property. It was about love, loyalty, and presence. Mom had made her choice long before she passed. She had seen who stood by her when times were hard. I didn't have to prove anything anymore. The truth spoke for itself. Vanessa eventually stormed out of the office, her heels clicking loudly on the floor. I just sat back down, calm and steady. I didn't feel victorious, only at peace. Mom's decision wasn't revenge, it was recognition. When I left the lawyer's office that day, the air outside felt lighter. I looked up at the house later that week, the same one where I grew up, laughed, cried, and once felt invisible, and I smiled. It wasn't just a home now. It was proof that being kind, patient, and true to yourself matters more than pretending to be perfect. Vanessa's silence that day was the sweetest sound-eyed. The photo album still sits on my coffee table. The same one that was once thrown in the trash like it meant nothing. I dust it every week and sometimes open it while sipping my morning coffee. The pages are a little worn now, but every picture, every note, every pressed flower still carries a piece of my heart. It reminds me of where I started, the quiet, overlooked daughter who only wanted to be seen, and how far I've come. Sometimes I run my fingers over the cover, and think about that birthday party years ago. Back then, I thought the world had ended when I saw it in the trash. I felt small, unwanted, and foolish for trying. But now I see that moment differently. That night was the start of my strength. It was the moment I stopped waiting for someone else's approval and started building my own peace. Life is calm these days. I go to work at the hospital, come home to my cozy apartment, now filled with warmth and laughter, and spend evenings reading or cooking. There's no tension, no comparison, no need to prove anything to anyone. I finally understand that peace isn't something people hand to you. You have to create it for yourself. Every time I glance at that album, I think of Mom. In her last months, we shared more love and understanding than we had in years. She told me how proud she was, how sorry she felt for the things she hadn't seen sooner. I never held it against her. People can be blinded by others until life forces them to see the truth. I'm just grateful she saw it before the end. As for Vanessa, we barely talk now. I don't hate her. I don't feel anything, really. She made her choices, and I made mine. I used to think revenge meant getting even, making the other person feel the same pain you did. But now I know real revenge is living a life that doesn't need their approval or apology. The gift that was once thrown away has become a symbol of my journey, from rejection to respect, from hurt to healing. I didn't need to shout or fight. I just needed to stay true to myself. Slowly, quietly, life rewarded me in ways their approval never could. Sometimes, when friends visit and notice the album, they say, "It's beautiful. Did your mom love it?" And I smile. "Eventually," I reply softly. Because that's the truth. She did love it, once she actually saw it. And through that, she finally saw me too. Now, when I close the album, I feel peace, not pain. The past doesn't hurt anymore. It just reminds me how strong I became because of it. Sometimes, revenge isn't about winning or hurting back. It's about becoming everything they said you could never be, loved, respected, and at peace with yourself. Broken Heart Sparkles. Ever heard, not because she lost, but because I had finally won my peace.